Live from the rooftop of the Hermann London Real Estate Group in beautiful downtown Maplewood, it's the St. Louis Realtor Podcast with your host, Adam Kruse.
All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for listening today. Today is podcast number 10, so we are excited. Joey and I are really getting to know each other these days. The Hermann London studios are getting some wear, and I think it might be time to get some studios maybe in Times Square or something, Joey, but we've got a special guest in the studio today. This entire podcast today is going to be focused around our special guest. We have in the studios today Shannon Howard. And if you haven't heard of Shannon, you should have, but check her blog out. She's got a website, STL Homes with Soul, and she's a local realtor, and she's really active, and she's super smart. And we found her because her blog was rated one of the top 5 real estate blogs in St. Louis. And so welcome, Shannon. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm happy to be here. You're correct. I am a blogger. I'm also a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Select. I specialize in vintage and unique properties in St. Louis. And my blog actually focuses on vintage and unique properties. I try to tell interesting stories about local real estate and interesting architecture and local history. So definitely a passion of mine. And being able to sell the real estate and write about it is just kind of a perfect mix for me.
Okay. Well, let me ask you kind of maybe what's a basic question. You said you're a blogger, and I'm kind of wondering what that means. And for the audience, too, does that mean you just like to write articles, or what does it mean to be a blogger?
Well, blogs come in many different forms. Mine, basically, I go from a first-person perspective where I kind of cover what I like to write about. Okay. If I see a house that's appealing to me that I think is interesting or unique or has some sort of cool story that I'd like to tell, that's what I blog about. So
do you look around on the MLS, or do you look around, just drive around town, or how do you find these properties that you're going to write about?
Definitely use the MLS every day, always looking for interesting properties. But because I also deal with a lot of buyers who are looking for unique properties, I also keep a unique homes database. Oh. And every time I'm out and about driving around St. Louis and I see an interesting property, I write it down, come back to my office, put it in the database. So I'm constantly pulling from different sources and looking for interesting properties.
And that's kind of interesting. You look for vintage and unique homes, and your blog is STL Homes with Soul. So what does soul mean, and kind of what is interesting to you? Is it the landscaping or the paint colors?
I like a house that is not a cookie cutter house. Okay. I would never want to live in a neighborhood where every house looks exactly the same. I think of a house with soul as a place that, someone put their heart and soul into it. Somebody put some extra thought and care into choosing the design of it, or choosing the finishes inside of it, or restoring it in a way that's really sensitive and reflects the history of the house. People are always asking me, how do I define vintage? Yeah. I typically think of vintage as 1970s or earlier. But at the same time, I do have a special place in my heart for 80s contemporary houses. I like houses that are newer, that are just quirky or different, or, might have a strange fountain inside, or some interesting sculpture, or unique paint, or, anything that's just a little bit different.
So it can be architecture, it can be kind of interior design.
Yes.
It can be interesting furniture, I guess.
Yes.
Did you see that article recently about the home that was, I guess, found, and it was still the pristine 1950s condition?
Yes, I absolutely love those. I write about those frequently on the blog when I find them. I call them time capsule houses. Uh-huh. I've been in quite a few. I actually, last year, my husband and I found one that we would try to buy ourselves and got outbid. But it was a 1950s ranch with the original aqua blue kitchen that looked like it had just been installed yesterday.
Wow.
It was meticulous condition, and I'm amazed at places like that. I love when they just haven't changed at all, and they're still in such beautiful shape.
So being that you love those kind of properties, as a realtor, would you like to find a buyer who wants to buy that house and live in it how it is? Or do we just appreciate it before they tear it all out and throw some granite in there?
Well, I tend to attract a lot of buyers who are looking for houses like that.
Okay.
And it's frequently a challenge because there are many people in St. Louis, including other realtors, who don't see value in those homes.
Right.
And immediately want to go and rip out that original vintage kitchen or that original pink and black bathroom. They assume that no one is interested in that, when in reality, I have a backlog of people who are just waiting for a property like that to come up.
Okay.
But I've actually gotten in fights with other agents because they're marketing a house as a teardown.
Right.
When I have people that are just dying to get in there and save a house like that and preserve it exactly how it is.
Right.
Now, I will say, I'm not going to make anybody feel bad if they want to come in and alter a house that I sell to them.
Sure.
That's a personal choice. But I would say, for the most part, I get people who like the original.
Well, let me kind of ask a couple more questions about that 1950s house, for example. They had the 1950s style countertops and flooring and all that thing, but they can't keep the dishwasher, right? I mean, does it even work?
Every once in a while, I will get a client that is a purist and wants the original dishwasher and wants the original stove and will change nothing. For the most part, though, I tend to work with buyers who want a balance.
So it's kind of a mix.
Aesthetically, they want the old, but functionally, they like to mix in new.
So do they put stainless in there, or stainless steel dishwashers kind of thing?
They can. I mean, actually now it's kind of interesting. There are a number of companies that have popped up that create really amazing new reproductions.
So kind of retro looking.
Yes. So you can go buy a retro looking refrigerator. You can go find stoves. There are places that sell, actually Formica sells countertops that are in the original boomerang pattern. So there are more and more companies now that are providing that, serving that niche.
What is that niche? You said like you have a backlog of buyers who want to buy. What does that buyer call themselves? Like, is that a hipster? Is that kind of is there no word for it?
No, honestly, I've met all kinds of people who just appreciate that aesthetic. Younger, older, and I wouldn't say there's one word for all of them.
Is it called kitschy? Is that kitsch?
I wouldn't say kitschy. I would say more, I like quirky better, or a retro. A lot of people just really like a retro feel to the house. They feel that it has more personality, more character, rather than a house where, everything came from Home Depot or right off the shelf. They just like that it has a little bit of character.
So you mainly find the homes that you are blogging about and that your buyers are interested in, I guess, by looking on the MLS or something. I wish there was a way that the seller knew what they had and they knew to call you, but I guess what happens is they don't know what they have. They think they have a teardown, so they just call the local top realtor or whatever. And so do you end up working with more buyers in that way than sellers?
No, I'm actually pretty even, buyers and sellers, and I have worked with a number of sellers that have very interesting properties.
Okay.
I had a really interesting one last year that was actually an original 1840s log cabin that an artist from the City Museum had taken a second 1840s log cabin from somewhere else in the middle of Missouri, disassembled it, brought it back, merged the two cabins together to create this amazing modern 3,000 square foot house. And I mean, I would dare most people to find a house more interesting than that one. It was really very, very special. And I tended to attract buyers for that one that just were bowled over by the sheer uniqueness of it. Like, you literally will never see a house like that ever again. So I get sellers like that too.
So I noticed that, I guess people are kind of Googling, unique homes in St. Louis
Yes.
and vintage homes, and they find you, right?
Yes.
I noticed on your blog, kind of down on the right, I guess there's links to other types of blogs. Is there sort of a community around this in St. Louis?
Well, there's a group, Modern STL, that focuses on modernism in St. Louis. And, St. Louis has a really rich history of modernist architecture around the middle of the century. So that group focuses on that and preservation of homes like that, because even though we do have this rich history in St. Louis, there definitely is a preservation concern in terms of those mid-century homes being torn down.
Okay.
I also, on the sidebar of my blog, you'll see a link to STL chickens.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, I actually had a bunch of clients, buyers and sellers, who were interested in raising chickens.
I'm one of them. I want a chicken. I want a few chickens.
I kept, we have these 90-plus municipalities in St. Louis, and I kept having people say, well, are chickens allowed here? Can I have chickens? And we'd end up going and looking at the ordinances, and I got kind of tired of doing that. So my sister is actually a web developer.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? Why don't I just sponsor a chicken website? And she worked for months and got together all the ordinances for every single municipality in St. Louis.
Okay.
And so that is kind of a community service that we
That
provide.
is a chicken website.
It is a chicken website. But I love working with buyers who are doing homesteading or, having a mini farm or raising kind of like that little suburban wonderland in their own backyard. I love working with people like that. So that just kind of fit in there perfectly with that.
Good. Okay. I'm going to ask some questions that I'm almost embarrassed to ask you, right? But you mentioned that you have, there's a group in St. Louis called Modern STL, which I picture modern, and I'm kind of picturing these big spaces that are old warehouses, so there's still exposed brick and there's wood floors and there's that's just kind of really clean and there's 2 chairs in the whole place, right? But that's not really modern, right? Modern, the way you say it, is from the 50s.
Yes. Basically, it's, there are different philosophies that came out during that time, but one of the big focuses during that time in architecture was integrating the interior of a house with the outside. Okay. So having a seamless flow between the two. Okay. Having houses that were site built. They were specifically built for that location and designed around that piece of land. And so a window might be positioned in a certain way just to capture that exterior view, and it was meant so that exterior would feel like it was part of the interior. So it's a common feature would be, kind of a long, low, straight roof line. You might have a wall of windows.
Is it those atriums you see, kind of in the middle of the house? You see this little, basically outside space? Is that part of
Not really. No, it would be more throughout the whole home.
Okay.
It would be we're having views out each window that were carefully chosen for that. Frank Lloyd Wright, even though he lived much earlier than this, he definitely influenced the mid-century architects. Okay. Because he had, he went through a phase 2 where it was very much about integrating the inside and the outside. There was specifically called Usonian architecture. Oh, okay. And you'll see, custom homes were built that were site built were much more specific to the site and location. But we in St. Louis actually have numerous examples of platted subdivisions where, just like you'd go buy a new home today, you went and picked out the model, you built your house, and several of those are just really designed for same, like I was saying, integrating the inside and the outside, but they're done on a much more modest scale. So
does it also kind of try to make the home from the outside sort of blend into the landscape? Is that part of it, or not necessarily?
In some cases, like a subdivision like Ridgewood is
where's Ridgewood?
A good example. It is in the Kirkwood area. Okay. And it is it's off of Big Bend. But it is, you might see what are aggregate roofs. It's an old style roof that actually looks like sandpaper with gravel on top of it. Okay. That's kind of a nod toward that. Okay. That, it's a low, flat roof line, and that aggregate looks kind of natural and kind of blends in with the surroundings. But you're also going to see, interesting lines in terms of the shape of the house. You might see vaulted facade. You might see a zigzag roof line. There aren't too many of those in St. Louis, but those do exist. it's kind of a whimsical time. It's kind of an
like that.
they're experimenting with different shapes, with, just different ways of living in a home.
Okay, so the type of people who are liking these homes appreciate the history, appreciate, I guess, you also talked a little bit about your blog about preservation.
Yes.
Is that kind of the idea of preserving that time and history? But I think you're also using it in the words of finding an old building and instead of tearing it down and building a new one. Like, let's preserve the space that exists, right?
Yes. I mean, I'm very much an advocate for preservation. For me to recommend for an old house to be torn down, it's got to be in really, really, really bad shape.
Okay.
Because I personally believe that they literally don't build them like they used to. The quality of the materials, it's just unmatched today. Like, we just literally can't afford to, most people can't afford to build a house with the quality that was used in many of the older homes. I love mid-century, but I also do love, Victorian-era homes. I love industrial-style old conversions. I'm a huge fan of using salvage materials whenever possible.
All right.
So I'm frequently helping people source places, that they can go and find an original old door, or transom hardware for transom windows, or I personally have salvaged hardwood floors out of a house that was being torn down and reinstalled them in my own home.
And does that make like financial sense, or is that just for the love of it? I mean, did that cost you like a lot more than it would have cost you just to go to Home Depot, or did it save you money, or it was not about the money? I'm guessing anyway.
Honestly, the floors that we ended up salvaging, they were red oak floors, absolutely exceptional. They had been in a home in Ladue under carpet since they were first installed, so they were in perfect condition. The big difference with them is that they came in lengths that you can't even purchase now.
Okay, wow.
So we had like 16-foot length boards. Now you'll see hardwoods that are much more choppy and shorter length boards. Right. To be honest, it cost us $200.
Okay.
To buy all of that wood, which is a crazy, incredible bargain. But where you really get it is the labor, because you have to pull nails from every single board.
Okay, so it's a labor of love, probably.
Very
you
much
guys do a
labor
lot of
of
that
love.
yourself?
Yes.
And every nail you pulled, you felt good about yourself, right? Because you're preserving some old wood.
Well, I can't claim that I pulled all the nails. I think we paid our nephew a nickel a nail, and he got to do that. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's learning too. You mentioned salvage. Is there? I think I've sort of spoken to different companies in St. Louis that do, I guess, salvage. Right? There
are quite a few actually. One of them that I've had really good luck at. They've been there forever. It's called Fellen's Antiques. That's Fellenz, down on Euclid. They just have an incredible array of old woodwork and windows and doors and.
Oh, so you can go there and buy a window. It's not just like a curio cabinet or something.
It's actually all house parts.
Oh, it is, okay.
Every once in a while they'll have a piece of furniture, but like fireplace mantles or, again, transom hardware, hinges. Those are, just house parts. There's a newer place called Refab that's down in South City that has a really wide array of interesting materials.
Where do you think they're getting this stuff?
Well, a lot of times you have contractors that are hired to put in a new kitchen. They have to go somewhere with those old cabinets.
Right.
So Habitat for Humanity runs the Restore.
Right.
There are a couple of those in St. Louis. And, a lot of people get a tax write-off for donating old materials. I know I've personally been contacted by people who want me to take things from them. Uh-huh. I got called last year by somebody that said, we have these amazing 1950s vanities, and if you don't come get them right now, they're going to go in the garbage.
And you said, I'll drop what I'm doing,
and
I'm on my way.
I did. So I took my husband's truck, and we went out there in the middle of the snow, and and I just ended up giving them away to someone else, but I just hate to see a piece that is one of a kind you're never going to find again just going in the garbage.
So there's probably a lot of people that are, buying an older property, planning on rehabbing it, and they're just throwing the stuff away that they could be not, and they're probably paying someone actually to throw it away for them to do the labor to demo. They could actually be making money if they would call you or call one of these stores, and they would come out and say, hey, I'll give you a lot of money if I can take those old doorknobs, for example.
Well, I just in my own home this past week, I had a new countertop installed. We actually have to pay like $35 to have them throw that in a landfill for you.
Right.
It's perfectly good countertop. Somebody else could use it. So that's the type of thing I would donate, like to the Restore.
To the Restore, right. Well, what kind of countertop did you get?
I actually, we ended up going with laminate. I am not a granite countertop fan, as you might imagine. But we did a really special order Formica that is made to look like stone.
Okay.
But it's called 180FX, and it's some sort of new technology that Formica developed that allows large-scale printing. So, like, they actually have a variety of one that is meant to look like a 100-year-old slice of walnut.
Okay, wow. And that's what you got?
That's we got the stone one, but they just have a lot of options that are meant to look. They definitely fool the eye. Let's just say that.
I imagine your house to look kind of like a vintage museum or something. You have just like all sorts of unique, interesting things to look at.
Well, I up until recently, I lived in a 1902 Victorian parsonage, and definitely very eclectic. Lots of artwork, lots of treasures, and salvage, and things that we've gathered. My husband and I decided to pare down recently and go to a smaller home. So I'm now living in a brick ranch, which is much lower maintenance. I'm very thrilled about that. But yeah, we like to collect things. My husband actually has a cabinet in our old house. He used to like to dig up things in our backyard.
Okay.
Because many old houses predate trash service.
Oh, wow.
So what did people do when there was not trash service available? They created a burn pile in their backyard.
Oh, wow.
So when we first bought our house and started digging up the yard for gardening, we kept finding all these pockets of treasures.
Oh, wow.
So my husband ended up getting a metal detector and digging up all kinds of things, and has a whole cabinet filled with all the junk from our backyard.
Okay, you're like, oh, okay, honey, yeah, that'd be a great place for that in the basement, or maybe in the garage, or maybe it's some of it's cool stuff. Well, what is one of your biggest pet peeve in some of the renovations that you see? And here's an example, right? I just bought a house recently, and we kind of did a little rehab to it, and we had hardwood floors that were one color, and we had the baseboards that were another color, and the walls obviously were a different color. And for the look, to really look great in there, we should really take those baseboards and the wood around the doors, and we should paint them white, and it would really pop, But I'm so hesitant to do it because I know people like you would come into my house when I have it for sale in a couple of years, and you'd say, "Oh my gosh, this guy! What was he thinking? Painting this good old wood with all the character and charm?" Right? Is that a pet peeve, or is there other pet peeves that you see in renovations?
I'd say I'm kind of mixed on that one. I had the white trim myself. Tried it natural. Didn't like how it looked.
Right.
But in my case, it was trim that was not anything particularly special.
Okay.
I would say I don't really care for it if there's a house that has like absolutely beautiful original doors with beautiful wood grain on it, really, really special. To paint something like that kind of breaks my heart.
Okay.
I hate to see that. Like I said, I love quality. I love vintage quality. And to see a vintage piece pulled from a home and then replaced with some fiberboard piece from a big box store,
right,
that kind of makes me sad, because it's just literally not the same quality. I don't know though. I understand it. You're not living in a museum. It's a home, and so people have to customize it to their needs. But I have to admit, I have showed houses before that have had original, absolutely amazing 50s bathrooms with a tile.
Yeah.
I showed one a couple years ago that the people had actually owned a tile company in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So these were like the top of the line, most gorgeous bathrooms you've ever seen. And when I walk in and my buyers are saying, "Oh, I'd rip that out on day one," I just kind of have to cover my ears and
you're like, okay, well, let's go look at a different house. I'm going to buy this house.
Exactly.
Okay, so you don't have necessarily a biggest pet peeve?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I just hate when a house has been destroyed, when it hasn't been loved and cared for, and they've just ripped things out carelessly. Like down in the city, there are so many beautiful homes in the city with such great original character, and it kind of breaks my heart to walk in and see all the moldings are gone and all the characters stripped away, and that just kind of makes me sad. But
so you say there's kind of a movement in St. Louis for the preservation, there's salvage and all this kind of stuff. I guess I want to ask, what role can realtors play in, preserving the unique, preserving the amazing homes that we have? What roles can we play?
Well, I think it's really about education. Having realtors themselves become more educated, and also being able to educate their clients to let them know that there is a market for these types of properties.
Okay.
And not just in St. Louis, all over the country. And ironically, there are people from other parts of the country who watch St. Louis real estate very carefully because of how exceptional some of our mid-century architecture is.
Wow, okay.
We're really thought highly of by many, many people. I just received an email the other day from a guy in Boston. He's obsessed over St. Louis real estate. He'll never move here. He just thinks we have the most incredible, eclectic, vintage architecture he's ever seen.
So the best thing a realtor can do is kind of, I guess, educate themselves. So when we do go into a house, we don't think, look at this old kitchen, this needs to be trashed, and let's just put it in the trash. They can think, this is a 50s style kitchen. There's a lot of people that would appreciate this.
Well, I think that instantly wanting to market it as a rehab or a tear down. I think people need to step back and realize that is not always the case. Not everyone wants granite countertops and stainless steel appliances.
Right.
There is a market for other materials, and I just think if realtors understand that, maybe then they're not giving advice to their clients that, oh, your home is terrible and everything has to be torn out. It doesn't always have to be that way.
Especially, oh, you've lived here like this for a long time. Before we list it, you need to do this and this and this.
Yes. I've heard that from many sellers that I've gone and met with. They've said, there was an agent here before, and they told me they wouldn't even list the house until I gutted the kitchen or I gutted the bathroom, and it's in good condition. I don't understand why I have to pull it out.
I guess, not all realtors are made equally, and some of them probably don't have the love for the real estate or the architecture or whatever. They might just like the sales part of it or something. Okay, so you're on the St. Louis County Historic Buildings Commission?
Yes.
What does that mean? You're a board member on there?
No. What it is the it's a board that St. Louis County has that does have, I think the term is, we're statutory advisors.
Okay.
To the county council.
Okay.
You have to be appointed to the board by the county executive, and I was appointed by Charlie Dooley.
So he found your blog. Charlie Dooley reads your blog.
No, actually, Esley Hamilton is an incredible asset to the St. Louis community. He is the county's historian. He works for St. Louis County.
Oh, okay.
He is just an absolute wealth of knowledge about St. Louis architecture and St. Louis history. And he and I had been in contact over the years. I used to run a really popular blog about North County and did a lot of research on homes up there, and so I became friends with Esley. And I told him I would love to be on the board, and I got appointed.
So what do you do in that role? I guess I'm curious. I don't quite understand yet. What does the County Historic Building Commission do? I guess if a historic property comes up, you guys give your advice to them about what to do with it?
Yes.
Or is that what it is?
An example of an issue that we've been dealing with lately is the Lewis and Clark branch of the St. Louis County Library.
Okay.
It is a mid-century modernist building.
Is that the one at Lindbergh and 40?
No.
Where's that?
No, it's up on 367 and Chambers up in North County.
Okay.
Moline Acres. And it has amazing, one-of-a-kind stained glass in it. And it's just kind of a boxy, classic modernist design. And it is St. Louis County Library Board voted to demolish it. It's part of their long-term plan to tear it down. Well, as preservationists, our concern is to preserve. And keep buildings of significance. And so in the commission's role, basically, we went to the county executive and to the county council and said, we believe this is a building of merit. We, we're able to provide backup from experts around the country to attest to the relevance and importance of this building, and we don't have any control over where that goes after we provide that information. We provide the advice, and sometimes it goes our way, and sometimes it doesn't.
So, best case scenario, they would keep the building, they would maintain it, and they would keep it as a library or whatever. You don't necessarily care, I guess, what they're using it for. Worst case scenario, would they be able to take, the stained glass out of there and put it somewhere else?
Well, unfortunately, it looks like that's probably what's going to happen. That they will remove the stained glass and they will install it in the new building.
They'll just put it in the new building.
Well, to my knowledge, though, it won't be installed on the exterior of the building like it is now. It will be on the inside of the building, but not even illuminated. So it becomes kind of hard to appreciate it.
It's just going to kind of collect dust in the corner. And
without light shining through. Plus, there is something to be said about a piece of art like that being displayed in its original context,
right,
as the architect envisioned it. And in that case, you're just kind of getting a piece of what was intended.
It sounds like there's a ton of kind of historic buildings in St. Louis, even in St. Louis County. I always think of St. Louis County as being newer, St. Louis City as being much older, but I guess it's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of at least 50, 60, 70-year-old buildings in the county. Oh, my
goodness. Well, actually, the Florissant area and the Spanish Lake area in North County are just as old as the city of St. Louis.
Okay.
And so Florissant, founded in the late 1700s. So there are very, very old buildings in the county, certainly.
If there's someone that's interested in helping you kind of with your cause, right,
mm-hmm.
is there some website that they should go to sign a petition or anything like that? Is there something they should look into doing? How can they help you?
I believe Modern STL had some kind of petition going for the Lewis and Clark Library. We don't really do that with the building commission, but I would say if you have an interest in preservation, there are numerous historical societies throughout St. Louis.
Okay.
Kirkwood, Webster, Florissant, they all have a group that gets together and talks about preservation concerns. And I would say, especially if you are younger and have an interest in this, please get involved, because I tend to show up and I'm frequently the youngest person at all of these meetings, so I would love to have some younger people, because if these buildings aren't protected for future generations and younger people aren't getting involved in this, then that's kind of a shame.
Away.
Exactly.
Because once the yous of the world are stopped fighting, then the person who wants to just tear it down and build a big box store or whatever there. Well, I do have my 5 questions.
Okay.
So I like to ask everyone these 5 questions, and if you don't mind, I probably should have asked these at the beginning, but I'm just going to zoom through these, all right?
Okay.
So Shannon Howard, 5 questions. Shannon, who lives under your roof?
My beloved husband of 25 years, Keith. I have 2 rescued pit bulls.
Beautiful. I love pit bulls.
And a cat.
And a cat.
So that's it.
Okay. They live under your roof.
Mm-hmm.
And where are you your best? And you can kind of take that wherever you want, but where are you your best?
Well, I was a professional writer for 17 years, so I love being able to combine my passion for real estate with being able to write.
Uh-huh.
So I think my blog is kind of a perfect marriage of that. Actually, I love working on it, and I wish I had more time to work on it, because the real estate part of my job frequently takes more time than the writing.
Sometimes you got to be out showing properties and make a living, right? Okay, so you say you're at your best kind of when you are, digging into a new property to write about for your blog. I love
working with buyers, but I absolutely love listing a really special, unique property and being able to tell the story of that property and present it in the best light possible, and get buyers excited about what the seller first saw in that property when they bought it.
I bet if you list a property that kind of fits into these categories we've talked about, I bet you have no problem selling it, because you know a lot of people who are interested in it.
Well, I think a perfect example, I sold a house last September in Old North, and that's a neighborhood that a lot of people might be a little bit afraid of. But this place was absolutely incredible. My seller had literally rescued it from demolition, built it completely from top to bottom, 3-story complex overlooking the arch and downtown, and all exposed brick walls and 13-foot ceilings. And, you know, he put his heart and soul into that. And to me, that's such an honor to be able to take that property and sell it out to somebody else with that same kind of passion that the seller had.
Well, who better to list it than someone who can appreciate the property, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, what is your favorite blog or podcast?
Well,
other than
it's my own. Can I say my own?
Or Soul, sorry.
I actually like, this isn't actually, well, it's technically a blog. I like a one, oh gosh, now, it's going to slip right off my head. So my blog, it's a renovation blog, Retro Renovation.
RetroRenovation.com?
I believe that's what it is, yeah.
Is it a blog or a podcast?
It's
or both?
a blog, and it's basically they highlight really cool vintage properties that have been renovated, but they also provide great resources for materials that people want to use. So yeah, Retro Renovation.
And is that like a nationwide blog?
Yeah, they cover all over the country.
Cool. Okay, well, we'll have to check it out. And this is kind of a funny one. What is your guilty pleasure when you're not writing about homes with soul?
I do love my dogs.
Your dogs?
Yeah, we love going walking with my dogs, and we travel with them, and we do agility with them. And
what's that?
Agility training. It's a course that's set up like an obstacle course for a dog.
Okay.
And pit bulls tend to be really high energy dogs, and if you don't exercise with them, they get really freaked out. So I think anytime I can have a day off and just spend it with my husband and my dogs, that's...
You make me want to start a whole new podcast about dogs, because I love dogs too, and the whole concept of, you know, keeping the dog engaged and interested and all that kind of stuff. We could talk about that forever. All right, and last question today, our last question of my 5, and probably the last question of today is, who's your mentor and how have you thanked them?
Well, my mentor was someone that I knew for many years beforehand. His name is Pierce Nykirk, and he's been a realtor in North County for 30 years. I let him know that I was kind of thinking about leaving my writing career and moving into real estate, and he strongly encouraged me. And at the time, he had just started his own brokerage, and so basically it wound up to be me and him.
Okay.
It's called Pierce Nykirk and Partners, and I was kind of the partner.
The partners.
And
is Pierce still around selling real estate?
He is still around. He's
okay.
based in Ferguson, and I just feel incredibly fortunate. It was like having just my own private coach for my first year of real estate, and I learned so much from him. He is not only a good realtor, but just a person of integrity, and taught me so much. And yes, I have thanked him numerous times, and we're still dear friends and just love him to death.
Was Pierce into the vintage and unique properties too, or did he just kind of teach you the real estate business?
Well, being based in Ferguson, it's hard to not like vintage homes because we have such amazing architecture there. So Pierce definitely appreciates that, but I think there were also parts of it that he didn't understand, and I had to explain, and I think he got it a little bit more the further we went on. Okay.
I always like to ask, how have you thanked your mentor? Because I think we all have mentors, and it's like, oh, I owe them my life, or I owe them my whole career type of thing. And it's tough to know how to best thank them. I'm sure Pierce, if he listens to this podcast, he'll be honored to have been mentioned, by you, and that you're still thinking of him. So how can people get a hold of you? Tell us your URL one more time, your phone number if you want to,
sure.
That kind of stuff.
Well, my blog is stlhomeswithsoul, SOUL.com. You can find me on my Berkshire Hathaway website at shannonhoward.net, and my phone number is 314-359-5927.
Give her a call for all your vintage and unique home needs, right?
That's right.
All right, great. Thanks, Shannon. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
All right, thanks a lot, Adam.
Thank you.